So, welcome to another episode of The Marketer's Edge, a series designed to share senior level marketing perspective about marketer challenges, opportunities, and agency relationships. Our goal is to help marketers and agencies learn from other marketers across different industries. Today, we're talking with Rebecca Morris-Hoeft, the Chief Brand Officer for Sunrise Banks, headquartered out of St. Paul, Minnesota. Becca, thanks so much for joining us today. How have you been?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I just got to say, I just got back from a week on the beach, so
Oh,
I am doing spectacular.
that's great. And just based on our pre-interview conversations, looks like you came back to something that didn't quite look like the beach with snow and a little bit of cold, huh?
Yeah, just missed. We were in Key West when those 16 inches hit, so
Mm,
just
yeah.
feel like I should go to Vegas now.
Nice, nice. Well, listen, I've got a small handful of questions for you, but before we do that, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about Sunrise Banks and what you do for them as their chief brand officer. I'd like our audience to know what kind of organization it is and what you do for them.
Yeah, of course. So Sunrise Banks is located in the urban core of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And we specialize in small business lending and retail banking. But as a nationally chartered bank, we also store, move, and lend money for mid-sized fintechs. But I would say we're not just a regular bank. We're a different cat. We call ourselves a social engine for good. We use the tagline, the world's most socially responsible bank. But it's not a marketing spin. We work diligently and intentionally every day. And actually, we're certified as a do-good organization by a handful of entities. For example, we're a community development financial institution, or a CDFI, certified by the U.S. Treasury. And what this means is that 60% or more of our loans are located in low to moderate income areas. We also go through a rigorous B Corp certification that focuses on social, environmental, and governance best practices for businesses. We've been lucky enough that we've been named Best for the World by B Lab, the certification group for B Corps, for the 9th consecutive year, which means we are in the top 10% of all. I think there's like 6,500 B Corps right now. So we're in the top 10% of all B Corps. We're also a public benefit corporation. In short, this means that our board and leadership know and drive our business around the idea that our mission is just as important as our margin. And then finally, we're one of about 60 banks in the world that are part of the Global Alliance for Banking and Values. So that's Sunrise Banks. Regarding my role as Chief Brand Officer, I do the data-driven marketing duties of a CMO, but being a CBO, is really a little bit different in that what my intention is to unite marketing with other efforts across the organization. So in other words, I represent the mission across the bank, including values into integration into everything that we do.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, when I first read about Sunrise Banks, I really hadn't heard of them before. Just fascinating. I mean, really impressive in terms of the work that you guys are doing, and clearly the bank's positioning is very different than what I've seen in other banks, and that's great. I'm just curious, the positioning of the bank and how you work, and does it I may kind of know the answer based on the fact that mission is just as important as margin, but do you think it limits the growth of the bank in any way, or does it do just the opposite, really help enhance it?
Yeah, I would say it does just the opposite. I see a lot of banks and frankly, other industries outside of banking just fall into that trap of marketing strategy based on transactions. And I'm really from the school of thought that when you're building a brand and creating a marketing strategy, you're building a relationship. So if you think about brands like Apple, Harley Davidson, Disney World, they're different. I remember the first time I took my husband to Disney and I got giddy because I remember the last time I was there as a child and the awesome memories I had at the Magic Kingdom. You see people who line up the door outside of Apple when a new iPhone comes out. you see Harley fans who will only buy Harley bikes, wearing their Harley gear and traveling with their Harley buddies. So at Sunrise, what I'm trying to do is build a community, and a community who believes business can be used as a force for good.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. And I'm curious, you know, how front facing is the bank's positioning? And what I mean by that is, do consumers see your story, your mission in your marketing and advertising, or is your marketing and advertising a lot like other banks where, you know, you see happy people, happy employees, and all that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we do show our happy people because we are happy, but um, and truly, because it's ingrained. I mean, just we have an abundant mindset here at Sunrise. But I would say, so let me back up a little. In November 2022, we were recognized by Fast Company as a brand that matters. So getting on this list was no easy feat. But the primary reason why we were selected is because the DNA of our brand is seen in every aspect of the bank, from
Okay.
our digital advertising, yes, to our storytelling, but also to our products and services, how we show up in the community, how our staff treat our customers. So it's that omni-channel. We're reaching out and living out the brand and the brand DNA within every interaction. Our ads do look maybe a little bit different. We do show the happy people, but we ask our audience who's looking at these ads to find out how Sunrise is different. And we ask that question in the ads so that they can discover that we are different and we are a social engine for good.
Yep. No, that's great. You know, it's amazing the number of things that the bank gets itself involved in and promotes on your website are numerous. I mean, from things like being a member, as you mentioned, of the Global Alliance on Banking Values, you know, to the things you do philanthropically. You know, can you maybe talk about one thing you think that the bank does that has the greatest social impact?
Yeah, at Sunrise, we're involved in so many great organizations, fintechs from around the world to, local community organizations. And what I personally love seeing are just all of these great organizations who are having deep impact. But I would say the most impactful and the most meaningful things that have social impact are those really deep relationships we've built within the Minneapolis St. Paul community. And so, for example, our work with nonprofits such as For Access Partners. This is a group of retirees who came from General Mills, who had started a program to help BIPOC entrepreneurs specializing in the food industry grow their business. They started it in Africa and they brought it to Minneapolis after George Floyd. And
Wow.
It's just been such an amazing experience to not only, be involved from a bank lens and help these food entrepreneurs gain access to credit and be able to build their business, but also to just spend time with these food entrepreneurs and helping them grow their business, coaching them on different things, providing them training. That I think would be my most favorite.
Yeah, that's got to be just so satisfying to see those individuals, uh, push themselves to get involved and see them be successful, and
Mm-hmm.
just got to be so fulfilling on so many different levels. I'm curious, are you seeing other banks in your competitive sphere follow suit, or how are they reacting, or have they reacted to the work and the positioning, of Sunrise?
When George Floyd was murdered, Minneapolis, of course, was the epicenter. St. Paul was right there too. And it was really heartbreaking to see the city hurting so much and the devastation that was happening, not only from a physical perspective, but also mentally for the community.
Right.
So, since the murder of George Floyd, I've seen more banks specifically and more organizations take a more proactive approach with ensuring their products and services are meeting the needs of the community
Hmm.
and specifically these underserved markets. And
Yeah.
frankly, um, we welcome this. Sunrise welcomes it. I welcome it. I will say no one will ever quite do it like Sunrise, as it's been part of our DNA since inception.
Yeah,
But
right.
frankly, in the financial space, we need more financial institutions that will step up and help close the financial equity gap, because
Yeah.
we can't do it alone.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's a great perspective on it. And, yeah, hopefully, the others that are sort of following suit in some way, are really internalizing it and find it meaningful for their organizations and continue to do it too.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to step up and just sort of shout it out, but it's another thing to really be able to hold on to it for a while. So I checked out your LinkedIn profile, and
Uh-oh.
my head started spinning. Now you're okay. You're a corporate development committee member for Global Minnesota. You're a board member for Community Development Bankers Association. You're the co-founder of Twin Cities Finance Women, and you're the co-host of a podcast called Next Gen Banker. So first off, when do you have time to sleep? Now, seriously, quite impressive. I guess the best question to ask is there a thread that ties all of that together? And then secondarily, what about Becca aligns nicely with all of the things that you're involved in?
My husband could answer this question, at least the first part, and he would say, no, she doesn't sleep. But frankly, if I didn't engage in these things, I know I would be bored. It's just how I'm wired. But to me, each of these engagements are important, and it's a part of the bigger strategy I have to engage as Sunrise's CBO with different members of the local community and the finance or fintech community as well. For example, on the podcast Next Gen Banker, which you can find us on Apple or Spotify, by the way, I love talking to interesting guests around the world who are doing innovative things to help close the equity gap. Twin Cities Finance Women is really about helping women thrive in the finance and banking industry, which has been predominantly dominated by males in the past. At Global Minnesota, I engage with larger corporations that have a global presence, and we focus on international topics, including DEI. And being part of the Community Development Bankers Association, I'm engaging with other like-minded banks who are also devoted to closing that financial equity gap. But in short, all of these extracurricular activities for me is about inspiring confidence and empowering change for the greater good.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious, how do all these things that you do get yourself involved in make you a better bank marketer? How does it influence what you do from a day-to-day marketing standpoint, would you say?
Yeah, first of all, bottom line, I'm a learner. If you take
Yeah,
Strength Finders, I just love to learn. I love to explore. I love to discover. And I think that's really important because whether it's banking or any other industry, the velocity by which technology has been changing our worlds and these different industries, we have to know what's coming next. We have to be agile. And so for me, each of these activities, I get to better understand our customer needs, our staff needs, and how I can be a positive instigator using innovation for good.
great. Yep. So I was kind of poking around on the site, and I saw that you recently won, I think for a second time now, I think it's Reagan. Is that how you pronounce it?
Right, right.
Yeah, the Reagan Top Women in Communications Award, and that's awesome. Yeah, congratulations on that. I'm curious, how are those award winners determined, and was there something in particular that you think helped you in winning these awards two times? Curious what the secret sauce is there.
I don't know that there's a secret sauce. I do have an incredibly talented team. And part of my MO has always been to give my teams a blank canvas and giving them permission to make it as beautiful, as colorful as they want. I yes, won this award, and frankly, it's an incredible honor to be recognized with other talented women communicators from big brands like Hulu and Pepsi and Disney.
That's great.
But it's not just about what I'm doing.
Mhm.
a leader is only as good as their team. And
Sure.
so for me, this is an award that my whole team can celebrate. And I think it's just a lesson for me to win it twice. It's just a lesson in giving up some control and inspiring your team. And it goes back to inspiring or empowering that innovation that I talked about earlier.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great way to look at it, and you're absolutely right. As a leader, you are only as good as the team that works with you, and giving them the ability to, empowering them, I think is a great way to build that and build success. So you've been operating in the banking space for 20 years now, and I'm curious, just as you take a look back, what would you say some of the biggest changes have been in the industry?
Mm-hmm. And first, thanks for giving away the 20 years of experience. Time sure did go fast. I'll say that.
Becca, yeah.
I know. Man, I still think I'm 32 or maybe 28.
Well, we are.
Thank you. And I'll talk about banking specifically, but it has changed dramatically as digital transformation has changed the way we do business. So many of us are doing banking on our phones instead of going into a branch. But that also really challenges me from a chief brand officer in how do we continue building a relationship instead of just focusing on transactions here, I think has become even more important. And that's not just for banking, that's for any industry, because we have moved, we think about how the pandemic has moved us to more open to online shopping, for example. And that has grown exponentially where these retail stores are suffering. So how do we still create that relationship when we're living in a transactional world? And so I think that is one of the biggest changes I've seen in our industry.
Yeah. And I would imagine just, Sunrise in particular, given the importance of community and how you've embedded yourself in those underserved communities, just having that, you can't live by virtual presence alone. You've got to be there, and they've got to see you, and they got to know that you're there to help them. So yeah, that definitely presents a challenge. And so as if you had to paint a picture of what the banking industry looks like, say 10 years from now, what do you think it would look like? What do you think some of the biggest changes might be?
It's funny you ask this question because on Next Gen Banker podcast, I ask each of our guests, what does the Next Gen Banker look like? So my answer to your question is going to be influenced by so many of these conversations.
Okay, great.
In short, I think banking is going to look completely different. The digital landscape will continue to grow. But the challenge, again, is going to be how do you keep or continue to nurture and caretake relationships with your customers? Security, there's a lot of fraudsters out there, will always be a challenge and will continue to be a threat. And finally, I see AI or artificial intelligence really taking a role in many industries, including marketing, including banking, and directly impact specifically the marketing function. And I've been thinking about this. I take my journal when I was writing in my journal just when I was on Key West last week. And, I was thinking about ChatGPT. Are you familiar with ChatGPT?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so really quick for listeners, ChatGPT just elevates the ability for the user to not just find the address of the furniture store you're looking for, but to determine if your Mazda CX-5 can fit the Ethan Allen chair you just bought. So it just really elevates and enriches that search experience. So what I've been thinking about, and as I speak to, for example, one of my agencies that I work with, is how does ChatGPT, how will that impact marketers when we think about search engine optimization strategies? But also, is there something else to it, such as chatbots. I can imagine a world where a chatbot doesn't have prescribed answers like what we're used to seeing. Like
Right.
if I go out to Delta, it'll say, are you a Sky Miles member? Yes or no. So it'll move away from that, but it'll move to a place where the chat bots will fully engage with the customer and be more specific in giving them the information they need at the time they need it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really fascinating. Uh, I've seen it. I haven't used it, but friends of mine have, and it definitely uh, marketers need to think about, the implications of it, and how to best maybe capitalize on it, to the advantage of the customers that they're working with, and their own organization. So yeah, it's all very fascinating. It will be interesting to see. Not just what the banking industry looks like, but what other industries look like as a result of AI and things like Chat GPT.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious. Do you currently work with any marketing agencies, and if so, what are they helping you do?
Yeah, I mentioned my extremely talented team. At the same time, I do use some agencies to help fill in those gaps of skill sets that I don't currently have on my team, or that my team just does not have time for. So
Got it.
some examples would be we use an agency to help with our SEO,
Okay.
and especially as we launch new products. I also use, for example, I use Thinktopia to do customer focus groups and message testing.
Okay.
I use agencies to help with media prep, um, as well as helping us write some of our storytelling that, again, we just don't have time for.
Right. Right. Okay. That's great. And just a couple of last questions. If a marketer came to you and wanted some advice, because they were thinking about bringing a new agency on board, what advice would you give to that marketer?
Yeah, I will tell you that in my role, I get hit up by agencies every single day. And frankly, I get about 40 emails a day just by agencies trying to
Oh
seek
wow.
me out. And frankly, I don't have time to read it all or
Yeah.
investigate.
Yep.
So I would encourage agencies that want to get my attention um, to encourage them to treat me how I would like to engage with my customers. So
Okay.
build a relationship and not just a transaction. And
Got it.
so for example, if they find me on LinkedIn, I want them, I'd be interested in hearing from agencies who I've started to build a relationship on LinkedIn. And that could look like they're responding to my posts, they're making thoughtful comments to get my attention, they're sending me an article that relates to something I've been thinking about. So it's
Yep.
almost like you're meeting someone at a bar and you just have this conversation that's happening, but instead of at a bar, it's on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then, when if you see that I'm at an event, come find me, come talk to me.
Sure.
I'm not a fan of the gluttony of emails. It's just too much work.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great advice. Yeah, there are too many agencies out there that just sort of, try and pound down the door and talk about how great they are without really thinking about who they're talking to, and the needs, and of their prospects. So if you were on the flip side, some friend of yours who's a marketer for some other company was thinking about bringing a new agency on board, what advice would you give to that marketer?
Yeah, and I've done this many times. It's really hard to find the right agency because, like I said, if you have these gluttony of emails coming in and you're trying to pick out from hundreds that are coming in from that month, you really are forced to leverage your peers
Right.
and
Okay.
those like yourself um, for advice on who to select. There are some really talented groups out there that can, or agencies that can add that competitive advantage to your current team strategy and makeup. but it's so critical to make that right decision. And so it's word of mouth. It's hearing from your peers and hearing from folks like RSW.
Okay. Well, that's very kind of you. That's great. Well, listen, this has been a fascinating, interesting, entertaining conversation. And I'm so impressed with the work that you're doing, that Sunrise Banks is doing. You guys are way ahead of the curve, and I certainly wish you and wish the bank, nothing but the best, because you guys are on a true and honorable mission, and hopefully folks watching this today, whether they're in the banking industry or not, will take something away from it and recognize that there's some real value in committing yourself to a purpose in a real meaningful and sustainable way. So Becca, thanks a lot, and I certainly wish you again all the best, and hope you adjust comfortably back to the chilly clime of Minnesota.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's been a lot
All
of
right.
fun.
Yep. Thanks a lot.